In the UK, I think that coronavirus has now got to be almost as divisive an issue as Brexit was. I do think that Brexit is finally kind of becoming a done thing in the sense that the Brexiteers have won. We're out of the European Union. There wasn't universal contentment with that. I know there was some dissent in Northern Ireland that they didn't get fully, the UK, for example, didn't get fully what they wanted. There are some more hardline Remainers still pushing for us to stay in the union, but really it's a done thing, and I think that only time will tell if it was a good or bad decision or the right or wrong decision. That's that. But coronavirus is ongoing, and I think with every major event, similarities can be found with the World Wars and the Great Depression. Um, with every pivotal event, there are social side effects. And I don't want to give a long history lecture here, but I can think of lots of examples from both world wars and probably some from the Great Depression too. The coronavirus, I do think, is one of it's going to be something that will be remembered, a long time from now because the circumstances are so trying in some ways. Um, so you may know that there is a sort of an attempt at relaunch of the Clap for Carers initiative. Now, the lady who started this last year, Anne-Marie Plaz, um, who's British Dutch, I believe, obviously that was quite successful at the beginning of the pandemic for the first 10 weeks. Then it sort of fizzled out a bit. Now, this time round, it's just totally fallen flat, and apparently she's pulled out. I don't know if she organised it or initiated it this time. This time it's called Clap for Heroes, but it basically fell flat. Basically, no one done it, including Keir Starmer, who said that the way to he didn't criticise the initiative, but he said the way to thank the NHS is by improving their situation, improving their pay, and so on. And I think there's a number of reasons why it fell flat. I think that NHS people themselves seem to be quite, even quite negative about it at this point because they see it rightly or wrongly as being patronising, as being not particularly helpful, like tokenism. I think that's a little harsh, and I say that with all respect because I know they're under pressure and I know they're frustrated. But here's the thing that bothered me. Apparently, Anne-Marie Plaz, the lady who organised this, pulled out because people had sent her abuse and threats online. Seriously? I think that's very sad. I can understand people being a bit cynical about it at this stage, maybe feeling that it is even tokenism, but surely people can have the ability to see that there were good intentions behind it. Um, I mean, this woman just tried to bring a bit of positive spirit, positive energy. Um, True, clapping in itself doesn't help anything necessarily, but I just think it's sad that people are so cynical towards something that clearly was based on good intentions, and a generosity of spirit, because it was. So I think it's disgusting that this lady receives any abuse over it. People didn't do it, and that's the reaction this time. But abuse of the organizer, I think that's disgusting. And anyone doing that should be ashamed of themselves. So that's just one of the many sort of side effects of this that we will talk about in years to come. But I also want to talk about the restrictions and issues around that. Now, I know NHS personnel. I know a friend of mine is a nurse. I know ambulance drivers. I know people who are inside now. I'd be lying if I said I was in daily contact with them. I'm not. Um, but I know the pressure that they're under. Um, and I do have profound sympathy NHS staff are under pressure at any time, but this pandemic has been absolutely very, very trying for them. And I don't say that in a patronizing way. I obviously don't know from personal experience, but just from what they've said. And I can fully appreciate their frustration and anger at idiots who go around saying the virus is fake. Um, I've said before, I've got no respect for that sort of conspiracy theory. I think it's ludicrous. I think it's reckless. I think it's callous. Um, Vaccine is a little bit different because I think some concern about a new vaccine is understandable. I think that's different from saying the virus is fake. However, personally, I probably will take the vaccine if it's like 70 or 80% um, foolproof. I think I will take it. But the chief medical officer, I don't know if it was Jeremy Van Tam or Chris Whitty, said that just because people have the jab doesn't mean they can then be blasé about it and disregard the restrictions. Here's the thing. I have enormous respect for NHS staff, but they are looking at the perspective that they see, which is entirely the health perspective. I fully get that. That's their job. That's what they see every day. They see the consequences of this. They've seen people die. They've probably had colleagues who've died. So I absolutely understand that their number one concern is the public health side of this. But the government does have a very difficult job of getting a balance between dealing with this pandemic, the public health side, but also the economic fallout and social consequences. There are some people who think that we should be in an absolute lockdown with all, you know, never mind tier four, they want to see a situation where basically people are holed up in their homes all the time. Now, I disagree with that quite strongly, and this is why you can't have a one size fits all because not everyone is in the same situation. Not everyone drives for a start. So there's a very basic thing, and it's called food. When I see people say, "Oh, just stay at home," I think I understand the logic, but it's just disregarding basics. People need to eat, and you might say, "Oh, well, I can order food." Not necessarily, because if everyone done that, then who would deliver it? It's just not a practical solution. So I only go out for necessities. I wear my mask. That's just one of several masks I've got. I obey the rules. I keep social distancing, and I think most people do. And I would respectfully say to NHS people who are sort of saying, "Oh, everyone needs to stay at home." Most people have been responsible. Um, but there is a real liberty issue here. The job of the government and the job of all of us is to try and reduce infections. And right now it's a very bad situation. Apparently, London's just being put into an emergency situation with this. So clearly, it's still a very, very trying situation. So these idiots who won't even do the basic things, I do think they should be shamed and face even consequences. However, on a broader issue, at some point there needs to be an easing off. And I think that the people calling for the hardest restrictions, they also need to put the caveat that they understand that there is a liberty issue here. They need to understand, or they need to acknowledge that people are giving up their liberty. Now, there's been a lot of criticism of the government of Boris Johnson. I think there's been mixed messages. There's certainly been double standards with the Cummings scandal. However, I think that Johnson has tried to communicate in terms of understanding the frustrations. But when people, whether it be government officials or NHS people, say just stay at home, if someone is on their own and they need to go out to get food, or if someone is a vulnerable person, maybe they are a vulnerable adult, maybe they have serious anxiety issues. There's a lot of factors whereby these blanket statements are not necessarily helpful to their mental health. And I strongly believe that mental health has been hugely sidelined by this. I know the government has a helpline, but all the time it's the same mantra: just stay at home, just stay at home, just stay at home. And most people, including myself, abide by that. But you can't disregard the mental health side of this. And this cannot be a permanent situation. It can't. Um, People will be only too sad to see these damn things go because we have given up liberty. I get quite annoyed when people say, "Oh, it's just a little thing, just stay in your house." I think the people who say that are probably living in big houses, where they don't have the sort of pressures. I keep using this example, but I think it's valid. Say, for example, a family in a tower block where they maybe have two rooms. So this is not, we're all in it together. It's not hit people equally. It just hasn't. And it's disingenuous for anyone to say that it has. It has hit some people a lot harder. Domestic violence has risen. Gambling has risen, apparently. There are some bad side effects of lockdown itself. And there are some people starting to believe now that the lockdown measures are causing more damage than the virus itself. Make no doubt about it, the virus is a killer. It's killed over 73,000 people, and no seasonal flu does that. But I'm not neutral. I'm still on the side of taking this thing seriously, but I also am sympathetic to the argument that we can't disregard the liberty side of this. And I do think that some people have used this as an excuse to be mini tyrants. Certain police forces, and others, I do think are being overzealous in terms of what's allowed and what isn't. For example, not everyone that isn't wearing a mask is just being a COVIDiot. Some of them have legitimate reasons for not doing so. They might be rape survivors. They might be people who suffer severe anxiety, or maybe they've got allergies to the masks. So I think one of the worst things about COVID is, yes, it's brought out the best in people. We've seen the humanity of the NHS workers. We've seen the generosity of neighbours helping each other. There's been a very good side in that sense, but there has also been an increasing amount of judgment and a certain degree of social hostility as well. And I'm concerned about some of these side effects. I am. So to be clear, I've no time for COVIDiots. I've no time for people saying it's all a big plot by Bill Gates to keep us under control. The stupidity of those people are just galvanizing the problem because the more they gather, the more they spread this thing, then it's a cycle. Of course, the government's saying going to have no choice but to make more restrictions. On the other hand, I think as more vaccines are rolled out, it's very slow at the moment, but as more and more people get it, I do think the government needs to be looking at a window of easing restrictions. I really do, because the British people have been very patient. And I know these are issues in Italy and other countries as well, very similar issues. So it's not just Britain, but people are fed up with the restrictions. And I really, really do sympathise with NHS workers who are working around the clock. They're exhausted, their morale is low, and that's also a problem in other countries. An Italian nurse who was promoting, I forget the exact circumstances, but the community rallied around her when she got a lot of abuse apparently from trolls. So, and as for, physical abuse of NHS staff is disgusting. I think that should be punished, uh, consequently. But there are multifaceted aspects to this, and one of them is reducing the number of virus deaths. But, but, the other things, the economic fallout, the mental health, and liberty are not things that are trivial. And like I say, NHS people, their number one concern is health, understandably. But the government, understandably, knows that people will only be patient up to a point, and people will, at some point, I think if this rumbles on, say beyond spring, I think there could be very negative social consequences. I think people will openly defy it because they'll be thinking this is worse than the virus itself. And that would be insulting to people who've lost loved ones. But I don't think that you could disregard those things. I don't think you could disregard mental health, liberty, and the economic side effects. Side effects. They're not even. They're big issues. Calling them side effects sounds trivial. So we're still in a very difficult situation here. We're far from out of the woods yet, and I would just implore everyone to be a little bit more understanding. Um, but the mantra, just stay at home all the time. I do think at this point that is not particularly helpful to anyone. I don't think it's even helpful to NHS staff because there's other conditions, for example. People have other health problems, and this mantra, stay at home all the time. They may be staying at home because of that mantra. They think that they'll get fined if they go out, and they may then be suffering from other health problems unnecessarily when it's legitimate for them to go to the hospital. So I do think I would say this with all due respect to NHS personnel. When you're saying to people, stay at home all the time, you're sending out mixed messages when you then say, oh, but come to us if you've got these problems. But who am I to tell them? Because they are going through this. If I was in their shoes, I would be immensely frustrated. So I want to temper that. That I Anyway, it's all about a balancing act. I do think the COVID idiots aren't helping anyone. By COVID idiots, I'm talking about these people that say 5G technology is causing it. They're deluded. They are utterly deluded, and I don't know if there's any getting through to them. However, concerns about the vaccine, I wouldn't totally dismiss that as crazy because there has been examples in the past, like thalidomide, of things that have went wrong. But I think this one is, I'm relatively confident with it. And so far, the people who've had the jabs, from what I gather, there has been no negative side effects. So we'll see. But that's the situation. And I'll be so, so pleased when this country is out of this because I think people are turning on each other. I mean, the fact that, again, going back to the clap for carers, the abuse that woman received, it's what the hell is wrong with people? That they would target a woman who just wanted to do something good. I don't know what sort of people would be targeting her, but it's disgusting. Um, and I hope she has messages of support. Okay, thanks for watching, and let's hope we get out of this, certainly by summer.